Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Boys in the Cave. My name is Tanzim and I'm joined by my co-host Josh, and alhamdulillah we have a special guest with us today. She has been on our podcast before and she's actually agreed to come on again, so you can, I think it was episode 30 or odd, so you can definitely check out her last episode we did with Monika. So we have Monika Sarker on today, and she's a YouTuber, part of HijabiBengaliSisters, and she's also a photographer and videographer. So assalamu alaikum Monika, and welcome to Boys in the Cave.
Well, welcome, salam. Thanks for having me again.
Anytime. Look, we got you on. I know it was like very short notice. I think I messaged you 2 days ago. And for the listeners, some people may be aware of the situation or quote unquote accusations that come to light about a certain particular figure in the community. I don't want to use this episode to discuss too much about details about specific cases, because it does take away a relevant issue that's prevalent in the community. So the issue is, you can definitely check out Monika's social media or my own personal pages if you want to get up to date with what's actually happening. But there has been an issue of a broader issue in the community in terms of, you know, actions of perhaps Muslim leaders or particular Muslims that have a platform in the community, and they actually misuse the platform for personal gain. It could be for example, I don't know, to get with girls or message, quote unquote, hit up the DMs, or it could be just using their power and influence to get what they want. And I'm not going to say it's like prevalent. I don't know to what extent, but that's why I want to actually get you on, because, you know, you have a platform yourself. You actually are connected with people in the community that may have experienced these things, or may experience this yourself. So in terms of this specific situation that has been occurring in the community, how prevalent do you feel it is in the community? Is it more common than we think it is?
I just feel like we don't know the thoughts of the guys or the men that have, like, you know, a lot, like a status or popularity or religious knowledge. We don't know their mind in the way, you know, they're thinking about the female fans or whatever. But in the sense of like the experiences, yes, unfortunately. I mean, my sister has gone through it. I have gone through it. I know a lot of other sisters who's gone through something similar, where people with, you know, a lot of following, it does, again, there's a saying that a man is tested when he has everything, and that includes wealth and power and fame, and that's a huge test. And I would say, unfortunately, it's prevalent in its own way.
SubhanAllah. So I don't know if you want to delve into too many personal details, but would you, or you don't actually have to obviously mention the person specifically, but just in general, like what sort of examples can you give where, you know, certain people in the community have done certain things or have approached you or in any sort of particular way?
So, for me personally, I think my first experience happened like back in 2012. A certain imam came to our university, and I was like, I really like this person because, you know, I was like, mashallah, they're very knowledgeable. They converted to Islam too. That's even more attractive about a person that, you know, who chooses to believe in this religion and then like preach about it. Like, mashallah, what a good thing. So he came to our college, and I was like, yo, let's go watch him. And we did. And there was like 500 people there, you know? And I found out that he's married. I'm like, oh, that's fine. I saw his wife, you know, she's a niqabi. I'm like, mashallah, whatever. And then, eventually after that event was done, I went home. I actually added him on Facebook. I wasn't sure if it was a private one or whatever, but I added him. And I had a question about Shia and Sunnism because I didn't understand the difference. I didn't know why people disagreed. And he never responded back to me. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I can respect it. He has a wife. He probably doesn't want to talk to females. You know, that's fine. Then all of a sudden I post some pictures, and all of a sudden I get a message from him. And this individual asked me, are you a model? And I was like, no. And they're like, oh, mashallah, you're very beautiful. And I'm like, thanks, you and your wife is very beautiful.
Oh, well.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, you and your wife is very beautiful. And he's like, alhamdulillah, thanks. Anyways, your smile is beautiful. I was like, thanks, so is yours. And then I was so confused by this. And then he asked for WhatsApp. And I didn't know at that time what a WhatsApp was. I was like, I thought it was just like an app or whatever to talk. He's like, oh, do you want a WhatsApp? Do you want to trade? I'm like, what? And I didn't know that it meant trading numbers, you know? And I was like, no, sorry, I don't have that app, so I can't. And he was like, okay, but you're so beautiful. Keep smiling, sister. And I'm like, okay. And you like sent like winky face and stuff at me. And I was like really confused, right? And so like I ignored it because he just kept trying to talk to me still. And he still didn't answer my question about Sunni and Shiism. So I was like so confused. So then what's happening is this person goes as far as stalking me, finding out a YouTube channel, finding out our public Facebook page, and then even my private Instagram, and kept messaging me on those and saying like, mashallah, keep up the work, and like just to start another conversation. At this point, I got sick of it because it like lasted for like a year or so. Like he kept trying to talk to me and stuff like that. And at a point, I wrote a status on my Facebook, and this is I kept it like without, I didn't tell anyone's identity or whatever like that. I just basically wrote a status saying, I'm sick of these men out here who have like a platform, who preach about Islam, who are married with kids, who like decide to cheat on their wives. And like, I hate these religious men. Like I keep experiencing that too over time in life. But I wrote that. And then another imam who's also famous and popular told me to delete it and was like, okay, can we talk about this? And I'm like, okay, what's up? And he's like, okay, first delete it because you know how like pastors and priests, they have like a bad reputation. So why don't you yourself move it, because you're going to give all of our people bad names. And I'm like, that's true. And you know what really made me mad? Because in my status, I was like, hey, I'm thinking to contact the wife and tell her like, you know, your husband's talking to me like this. And then someone actually commented under it and said, no, you're going to ruin the marriage. I'm like, what? But he already ruined the marriage by doing that himself, you know? And so anyways, then it went as far as, you know, they were talking about Sharia law, how I have to show evidence and everything like that. And this guy was super clever. Right when he realized I was talking indirectly about him, he quickly deactivated his Facebook where the messages were deleted too, because it was like on Facebook. And then I couldn't properly show it because his messages were deleted, but mine were there. And it was just, so basically like we brushed it off. Later on, we found out that he ended up getting divorced with his wife, and he was maybe looking for either a second wife or getting remarried. And probably that's why he was talking to me like that. But unfortunately, like, yeah, that's my experience. And I've had more experience too, even like recently. And it's never ending. And I've even like, you know how like people nowadays on Instagram, they idolize these Muslim couples. And there's this one Muslim couple, they're famous because they're a Muslim couple. And the guy like reached out to my sister and tried to flirt with her. And my sister's like, wait, what? And it's just crazy because it's like, it's unfortunate. It doesn't matter how religious someone may appear. Like, unfortunately, that's what life is teaching me. It doesn't matter about someone's religion or how they appear in the public. You just never know. And I mean, we know a certain imam. We all know this person who, you know, it finally came out that, you know, he was talking to multiple women, got married to multiple women. And it's like unfortunate, but it happens. It exists. And many of us, we're kind of scared to talk about it because like literally me and my sister today, we were just talking about the situation, if you know what I'm talking about that certain public figure who it came out that he was talking to multiple women. And I was like, okay, but it takes two to tango, right? So obviously, because when I read those text messages, I was like, okay, these text messages does not make sense to me, because he said one thing and then the girl said something else, which does not make sense to like it didn't make sense. Like it wasn't the right response to the previous text. And I was like, I feel like those women definitely did flirt back with this person and like talk to him in a certain way, and deleted their own. Because at the end of the day, we all have to take responsibility if we were part of the problem too. And it was probably obviously consensual. But then there's something else that me and my sister realized of possibly why they deleted their text messages, their private text messages, is because if they kept those text messages of their response, people are not going to care about what this person did and how many women he talked to. They're going to be like, oh, why are these women talking to this man like that? Especially knowing that he's married. And then they're going to ignore like the fact that these women are saying like, look at what he's doing to us. They're just going to look straight at the woman and be like, why are you even talking to him like that? You know what I mean? So it's like, and not even that, even when they did kept it anonymous in the sense like they didn't give their own identity out, they like deleted their own part of their text messages, people still went on them. We don't believe you. You're lying. And this is like, so it's so hard being a female and even talking about it. So I can see why it's hard to believe that men like this exist that have, you know, power and everything like that. Because women, no matter how much proof we show, people still disbelieve us, unfortunately. So yeah,
there's a lot to dissect there. Because you gave an example of your own experience, and we can actually use that as a case study, right? So people say that, oh, it's because you messaged him about like Shia and Sunnism that it kicked it all off, right? But I'm not saying I'm just asking the questions here. I'm just saying a skeptical mind, because there will be people that will, you know, ask these questions. But what would your response be to that specifically?
I would say, okay, why does that even matter if I messaged him? That's the point. You go to someone of knowledge to ask a question about religion, to ask a question about something you're confused on. Because like I've had so many Shia friends like arguing with me, and I'm like, well, I can't even argue back if I don't know why I believe in my part, why I believe in what I do, you know? So I've tried to reach out to this thing before even this guy. I've reached out to other ones, and they never responded back to me either. And he was just one of them. So he never responded. I'm like, okay, cool. I have a lot of imams that I'm cool with, and none of them responded. Okay, out of nowhere, he responds to me out of all, just to say I look nice. So I was like, what? So that's
a bit crazy.
The conversation was even going there. I just literally had a curiosity for Shia and Sunnism.
Because a lot of people, like, if people want to ask for my own opinion, right? It doesn't even matter about, you know, who messages what in terms of, you know, the women messaging him, right? Regardless of what you're saying, it's the fact that someone in a who has a platform in the community, who actually does talks, who, you know, runs, you know, Dawah material and courses and workshops and whatnot, and people who are actually in high prestige in the community, they actually have a responsibility to not act that way, because they're in a position of power, right? It literally comes down to power dynamics. So for me, when someone says, oh, it takes two to tango, I get where they're coming from, because maybe, the other person did reciprocate, or et cetera, right? It got to that point. But off the bat, a person in such responsibility in the community should not be reciprocating anyway. It's not up to the sort of lay person to say, oh, you know, the responsibility doesn't fall on them, because what you're actually doing is you're devoiding the fact that he, as a the guy who has a platform in the community, is actually, you know, not responsible, was only half responsible for it. And I don't take that kind of, you know, line of thinking. But what's your take on, you know, what my view specifically?
I think when it comes to that, look, I can take responsibility if I flirted back, if I also did, if I did that myself, then it's like, because there might be women out there like, oh, look, he's handsome and he's famous and he's rich. And then they can, they don't care, and they'll participate in those type of conversations. But I'm literally like, what is going on? Like, it was to the point where this guy was like, oh, you came to my event. You were wearing a black hijab and red dress. And I'm like, what the heck? There was 500 people there. How did he recognize me? Like, and I'm like, why? I'm like, how did you know? And he was like, oh, I'm very observant, winky face. So you were eyeing me up while you were with your wife?
Oh, dear.
So do you know what I'm saying? Like, that already, it was like, he already thought of it before I ever reached out to this guy. And and I feel like, again, I can take complete responsibility if I participated in an appropriate manner too. Because again, like, many people reached out to the Prophet too. I had questions that were females, and he was able to look them straight in the eye, give them the answer, and be done with it. So again, as you mentioned, like, when it comes to it takes two to tango, of course it does. But, you know, like, if you're not participating in it, then I wouldn't say that's your fault, you know?
Yeah, Monika, I feel like what Tanzim was saying earlier with the power dynamic and that entire issue, I feel like if you are set up as a role model figure in the community, then people will come to you regardless. So they'll come with questions, they'll come with inappropriate things. But the thing is, as a leader, you have to face all of that. So if you reciprocate to certain inappropriate dialogue, then you're still responsible in that case, because that's your default position. People are going to be coming to you. Do you get what I mean?
Exactly.
As in, you have to block it out. That's the whole point. You have to be at that moral standing where you're beyond, like, talking to lay people in that sense. As in, you won't respond to, like, inappropriate things that other sisters may say to you. Doesn't mean they're not at fault, but it's like, if you do reciprocate, you're still at fault. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes,
because it's like, if girls get in your DMs and then you reciprocate, that's still, sin is still on you. Do you get what I mean? As in, like, people can like you or be interested in you, but if you go out of your way to make that happen, I feel like in the case of the very big figure in the community that we all know about, like a year and a half ago, that was like, he was reaching out, but they were talking to him as well. But the fact that he even did that, I feel like, was unjustified completely. Do you get what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
As in, it's still, he's blameworthy 100% because he has that moral leader standing. He's the one that everyone looks up to. And he's the one that was giving talks about, like, oh, you should never be alone with a woman. It just
he said that you can't even be within 500 or 50 feet with someone in public, just so, because people might think wrong. And I'm like,
or like leave the door open.
I think he also said that if you message someone privately, then it's considered as staying in the same room as them, like by themselves.
Yeah, I've heard.
So it's like a bit of hypocrisy.
I heard so many things from him. I've heard so many things from him. So it's sort of like, I really felt that sense of hypocrisy there. So that's why I feel like the whole pseudo tango thing it's not really relevant to the discussion when it is like someone that's like at a higher level. Then they'll always have fans and people talking to them. So
yeah, like if you're someone like, you know, like I'm sort of a nobody and I don't know, someone else that's like in my sort of position, right? Then it's different. Like it's just like two people like kind of similar power dynamics.
Yeah.
Whereas if you consider it someone like, I don't know, someone that's like a proper hijabi Insta model who approaches me, that's like totally different. Like, because she's coming from a place of like, you know, power, fame, money, etc., and she can have that influence. You know what I mean? But would you say that does it happen the other way around? Because I just brought up example, if you know, successful Muslimah who has her own platform, because we're talking about from the perspective of if it's a guy in that position, does it happen that have there been situations, or have you heard of any situations where it's potentially like the girl from that kind of position of influencing guys to do actions or reciprocate in terms of, you know, messages or whatnot?
So I haven't heard it, but I'm not going to say like it doesn't happen. I'm pretty sure it does. You know what I mean? I can speak from my own experience. I've had, you know, many men DM me like all these questions and stuff. They were attractive. They were, you know, like good looking and stuff. But majority of the time, I just keep it like, yeah, brother, this, if I feel like answering. And this is the thing. The reason I sometimes hesitate answering to brothers is because I feel like they just use that as an excuse to talk to me more, to get to know me more. And I've had that experience too. And there will be times where I do like the only time, so this is my mindset. The only time I ever answered to a brother is if he's talking about a relationship that he's in. So meaning he's taken, right? So those are the brothers that I only mainly answer to, because I'm thinking, okay, he's married, he's taken or whatever. So he's not going to try to hit on me. Unfortunately, I learned the hard way. It doesn't matter. If men are married, they don't care. Not all men. There are good men out there. I'm just saying, like, in my experience, it like they get how do I explain it? Like, whoa, it's that girl from YouTube. Like, she's replying to me, and like they'll try to some of them will say, yeah, I'm interested in talking to you. And because the thing is, at the end of the day, the men are supposed to be the pursuers, the chasers, right? So even if a woman with a following or whatever it is, influence, like they talk to them, like a man will still pursue this. Sometimes they won't even care that you have all this following and stuff like that. So in my experience, I had, you know, men pursue me and stuff like that. Even if they were married, astaghfirullah. But I am pretty sure that could also happen, and you know, but it's just not as public knowledge as it is with other side, you know.
I think what this goes to show more than anything, Monica, is that like as Muslims we shouldn't see ourselves on any higher pedestal than like anyone.
Yes.
Because this is regular society. This is like, talk to a girl in the club or like some preacher who's being very like corrupt and like getting with multiple women, as in it happens in all other faiths. It happens in like workplaces where people abuse their power and get with like a lot of the women in the building. That happens, as in that's like a very common feature of corporate workplaces, where that culture of like I don't know who can like get in with this girl first or that, as in it's literally like it's just like Muslims doing it their own way, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, that's so true.
As in they're doing it in the DMs.
It's like the same sort of mentality, but it's just kind of manifesting.
As in people are people at the end of the day, and we shouldn't expect anything better just because we're born Muslim, or even just being Muslim. It's like we're still like not immune.
Yeah, we're humans.
We're still human, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to treat it the same way as like the rest of society.
Yeah. I guess it's just, for me personally, it's like, like out of all the other religions, when it comes to Muslim, we're more like so focused on modesty and the way we carry ourselves, whereas like Christians and Jews, like even like if you are a Christian about modesty, you'll see them completely away from men. They're like nuns, they're like not engaging in any of that stuff, where with us, like it's a realistic religion, like, hey, be modest, but at the same time it is a boy girl world, and like this is the way you participate in like events like this and stuff. So it's like, yeah, we are humans just like everybody else, but it's weird because like from my experience, I've witnessed things where it's like from my own Muslim peers where it was like worse than any non-Muslim has ever done.
Exactly. As in like we can't hold ourselves on any pedestal.
Absolutely.
Like,
that's true.
People who are Muslim can be just as bad, if not worse, than like what you see in Western society in a lot of cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think when you're Muslim, it comes out a bit weirder as well, because non-Muslims, at least they're up front, they're like, do you want to go out? Like they'll talk, whereas Muslims, they do it under the covers, sneakily, very shiftily, so you can't even tell like what the guys are doing.
And then they're very preachy too.
Yeah, exactly. They can, this is what I really hate, they can uphold that image in public of being Islamic, all about the Dawah, whereas they're doing all that stuff like in the DMs where no one knows, so they have that double life, that duplicity, as in it's pure hypocrisy. Whereas like I was telling Tanzim about this on like a brother's thread. So like the recent guy on Instagram, right? I only heard a little bit, but I was like, why does he have to maintain his image and go after religious girls in the DMs? Why can't he just like do his charity work, dawah work during the daytime, and then go to the clubs at night? At least that way he can say, oh, I'm flawed, as in I'm trying my best, but I'm flawed. And he'll be like, oh yeah, he's just another brother he's trying to get out of that. Whereas if you're DMing religious sisters, that's just like horrible. As in if you're going to do that, like do it with people who are like in that lane. Do you get what I mean?
Exactly. And they understand. They're not going to be offended by it. Because the thing is, if it was a consensual thing from both sides, okay, cool, whatever. But it wasn't consensual, that's what makes it worse.
It kind of plays, because we were having this chat before, it's like how men have to kind of be, like Muslim men have to be even more sneaky about it, because they're trying to uphold that halal,
like that religious image,
and it makes us even in terms of if you want to look at from the purification of the heart, it makes us even more I guess duplicit in nature. Like it's pretty scary, and it's hard as well, because I guess for males as well, you might gain a following. You have some good stuff to say when it comes to Islamic preaching. Though even like me and Josh are sort of in their own boat. Like we're sort of rising up the ranks in terms of Boys in the Cave and stuff. Yeah. And then you get attention, right? So I guess what you're like, you come from a place of sincerity, and then once you get this following and this your platform grows, then you're encountered with this bombardment of, I don't know, maybe sisters messaging you or whatnot, right? Not that we say like we look things in a sexual manner, but I'm just saying that you haven't really done the purified your nafs beforehand, so you kind of stuck with your same desires, but it's now amplified because you got more people kind of messaging you about it, if that makes sense. So I guess from a guy's perspective, it's really hard that we don't really focus enough in terms of purifying the nafs and the heart about these sort of issues, but we just sort of stuck with it and then our platform goes up, but then nothing's really changed. You're still that same person, but then you have more fitnah to deal with. So do you feel that that may potentially be like, I guess, what do you call it, like a cop out sort of for like for a guy as well, if you get what I mean? Like,
so for me, like the way you mentioned it, it's like I've seen it so many times in, like in celebrities too. For example, we've seen where a male celebrity, before he was a celebrity, he was with this one woman who was with him when he had nothing. And then when he finally hits that celebrity stage and he's like, you know, everybody knows them. And then you see this guy who's a celebrity now leaving the woman that's been with him when he was nobody and being with this like other person that's like whatever, like, you know, with a status or whatever like that. I think in my mind, what I think is like when it comes to men who when they reach that level of like fame, money, and all that stuff, you're tested because it's like, let's say you have a one celebrity crush, right? That celebrity crush is not going to recognize who, like even acknowledge who you are. And if you went like, let's say, hit her up in the DMs or whatever, like she's going to be like, who are you? Like, or not even answer to you. But when you hit that level yourself, then you're going to see all of a sudden that celebrity that you like is all of a sudden acknowledging you. And you're like, whoa, I'm not used to this. Like, whoa, like the one that I always wanted, that level, like now they want me. So it's like, it's a sense of, it's a test, because at the end of the day, like people, I feel like people, how I'm going to word this. I just feel like when it's something new, it excites men and maybe even women. I'm sure there's women out there too who get excited, like, oh my God, these people that never recognized me and that I used to watch all my life is now recognizing me. It's a test at the end of the day. That's what I think. I wouldn't say it's a cop out or anything like that. I just think it's something so brand new that like you don't know how to handle it. But at the end of the day, it comes down to your character. You know, what really matters to you? Is it going to be this new person who didn't care for you until you had something, or the people that cared for you when you didn't have anything, you know?
Monika, I wanted to actually ask you right now about the recent situation regarding this figure on Instagram, about what's happening. Mm-hmm. So I haven't been on Instagram recently, so all I know is that there was a flyer for like a New Zealand trip, and it was like really badly done, and it got a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's found out that the owner of the page who promoted that, he's actually very shifty, very not a very honest person, very hypocritical, because he has been I saw some of these screenshots and stuff where he's talking to girls. And so what's the latest? As in, it's been found out that he talks to multiple women on Instagram, and what's been happening after that? Is there anything else that's developed?
So, from my knowledge, because I know like my sister's involved in it too, and like she's talking out about it as well. Now like people are looking into the financial aspect. Now they're aware of the sexual harassment, whatever that he's done with other women. But now it's like, hey, is our donation money actually going to the people that we are giving the money to? You know what I mean? And people who are accountants, people who check for fraud, people who work for the IRS, people like they reached out to my sister and like, no, this doesn't make sense. That's not a real receipt. Yeah, he gave the EIN pin, but like that's not legitimate. You go to their website, like they looked, because like, you know, this person themselves, like they're posting like, oh look, we donated for this, we did donation campaign whatever for this company, for this profit, and like claiming that they're a nonprofit as well, when basically everybody found out that this person is not a nonprofit, this thing. And so it's like a lot of other things that are coming out, and people are like, whoa, what are we giving our money to? And you know what I mean? Because like you also have to look into the legal aspect of things. And then like, you know, my sister even got in touch with people that, you know, that work for this person, has worked for this person. They were like, yeah, a lot of them are like, yeah, the claims that people are saying about how they worked and they didn't have good experience with them, that's literally how it is. Because the person takes over their organization and the money like goes to his account, and then he will transfer the funds to them. But they, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's like there's a flaw in the process of the donation process, and like a lot of people, like some people like are sticking up to like, no, he's not like this and everything. I get it, you know, like, because again, if we could be absolutely wrong, that's absolutely true, that's fine. But we also have to remember that we don't know, like, I've mentioned this to everybody, like, don't take things face value. You just don't know what people are capable of doing, no matter how many years you've been friends with them or whatever like that. Like, I've been friends with this one person for like, since we were like kindergartners, we're like really young. And then after a while, like years later, I found out like, you know, I'm 27 now. So it's like, I was like, back then I was like, what, 6-7 years old. So like after working with this person, I realized, oh my God, they're not what I thought they were. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's just like a lot of questions about this person. And I know like a lot of people are like, you know, we shouldn't like question too much about the financial aspect. I'm like, well, why not? So we don't question at all about the sexual harassment that he's done, but then we will question the financial, we won't question the, you know, financial part. Like it's just confusing, because at the end of the day, I was talking to my siblings about this, and I was like, you will see people who will walk down the street, and they will see a poor person, and they won't give them money, because it's like, well, I don't know if they're going to use my money for good. They might use it for alcohol or drugs or anything like that, right? So why can't we also question, like through online, the process of how our money's going, and is all of it going, or is it just like 10% of it? We don't know. You know what I mean? So I just feel like we need to question everything, you know?
Like I've got, because I've looked into it as well, and I've done like a bit of research. Like, it's unfortunate from his perspective that there was the first New Zealand trip issue, and then the allegations.
It's like his whole life just
like,
unraveled.
and then this you know, where does the donations go? I understand, like I looked into specifically about the business side of things. I think that there is holes. Okay, firstly, I feel that the accusation in terms of going into his business, how he conducts his business dealings, people are saying that, like, because I was talking to Sim from Mad Mom Looks before this episode, he said that it's like saying, he approached me in terms of in a sexual manner, but I'm not accusing him of rape. So it's about questioning it, but not saying that, we're not saying that he did it deliberately or he's pocketing money, right? So there's that argument, which I actually understand, like that's fair enough, right? But at the same time, unfortunately, how things have played out, it has made his business dealings be put under the microscope. And I think in that aspect, even though how it happened is unfortunate, because you know, it's like a domino effect, right? So essentially, however, the idea of looking into how he conducts his business dealings, I think that's justified, like from a purely, like if you're just looking on the surface level of things, because people have a right to know where the money goes, and people have actually showed that he actually is the middleman, right? So he actually has the money, and then he sort of gives it off to the relevant organizations, right? So people in that frame of mind should be aware that, okay, this is actually what's happening. And I saw his post, right? All he's doing recently on his Instagram, he was doing posts like, okay, this is the organization that dealt with this, and I was affiliated with them, you can contact them. But that's actually missing the point, because on your sister's Instagram Insta story, right, she actually mentioned specifically that it's the fact that he is playing the middleman, so he has the money and then he gives it off. But what he's just screenshotting on his Instagram page is that he's screenshotting the campaign, and he's just saying this is the relevant organization, so contact them. But it's actually missing the point. So it's not actually bringing to light that he actually, quote unquote, hoards the money first and then he gives it off. So it's about having that transparency. Unfortunately, in these so I'm like, me personally, I don't think it's grounds to say that he pocketed the money, because people can actually take the money and then just give it off, you know what I mean? So it's about how much he took. Those in the realms of you don't know, because we don't have that information. But how the business is structured, you can say that he could possibly have done that, but I'm not going to question him. Like, you must be a scum to pocket money in that cause without telling people and giving transparency. Like, I feel that you know, you have to be like another level of, you know, of a devil to do that, because you know, this is charity you're talking about. So I don't actually accuse him of that in that doing that, but you know,
there was this one thought I did have though, because there could be one benefit of being the middleman, and that's if it goes to his account and then he gives it to the organization, he can he can put it as a tax thing where, oh, I gave the money from my account to this. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, to make it seem like it was his money that gave, so he can get like a tax break or whatever like that. Like kind of in a weird way scamming the system. Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, that's just a thought I had.
But actually, like, I don't think as well, like, people have said, oh, he's been accused of pocketing money. People are not actually accusing him saying that he stole money. People are saying that the way he's conducting business is a bit shady and there needs to be transparency. That's literally what I've been seeing. Like, a lot of people who aren't on the Instagram side of things, because a lot of influencers are posting about it in their story. No one's actually, like, from what I've observed, I've tried to take a objective stance. Like, people aren't trying to destroy his life, whatever. And people actually, they want, his page to succeed. They want him to succeed because he's a representation of Muslim around the world. And he's interacted with high politicians, to many people, community figures, leaders. Everyone knows him. So we actually, like, want him to do well. But the allegations of, his conduct with sisters, for example, this is like a concerning thing that needs to be brought to light, because this is a bigger issue that's actually plaguing the society. And I'm not saying that most sheikhs are into it. Like, may Allah bless, our leaders and community leaders and sheikhs and people who teach us the deen, to do it, in a halal way. So people aren't actually accusing all people of, all sheikhs of doing XYZ. It's more so saying that, look, this is a prevalent issue and it needs to be brought to quote unquote justice, right? So that's sort of my take on it. And on top of that,
like, I think the easiest way he can disprove people that he is pocketing any money is to literally show the transferring of the money and then what they are exactly doing with the money. Be like, hey, we just took this much out of the account right now. We used it for this. Like, me and my sister, we also, a couple of years ago, we had, so back in Bangladesh, my dad has like this whole orphanage, right? So we raised money for that orphanage. And whenever we got a decent amount of money and stuff. So anytime we use that money, we showed proof of what we did with that money. And we're like, hey guys, we just bought these people a fridge. Oh, hey guys, we got them a cow for Qurbani Eid. Like, like we would show it to them, show them a picture, because we tell them, like, cause we had family members there, to take pictures and show proof of it. Cause people just talk like screenshots. No, like, show proof that they're benefiting from that money. You know what I mean? So that's, I would say, is the best way to help him, as an advice for him, because at the end of the day, showing, he showed his a tax paper or something like that recently, and like people easily disproved him that it was like fake, because he put all of his information and you can easily find it online, and it said search not found, basically doesn't exist. So that's why we're questioning
how it's not a non-for-profit registered. So these are concerning things, and I think unfortunately the circumstances have been in such a way that it's been brought to light in this point in time, but unfortunately he has to kind of show that he's doing everything ethically. But I wanted to bring it back to the main topic of conversations. I don't want to be specifically about this case. I do want to talk specifically about the whole issue of the dynamics of Muslim community leaders, activists and whatnot kind of approaching women in such a way, and if it is prevalent in the community or not. But because with your case, like what we used as your example, what you experienced, if we use that as a case study, when you approach the sheikh, for example, that Muslim figure in the community, you came from a perspective of you want to find out more about the deen. And to be honest, the sheikhs should be used to it. Like, they should be used to females, reaching out to them and messaging them about questions. However, let's just hypothetically say the rule should be that no, women should not be messaging men, and women should be messaging other women in the community. But the issue is that it's not like there's huge amounts of women compared to men in terms of leadership positions, and in terms of, like, it's a bit controversial if I say this, but in terms of like in high positions in knowledge of institutions and organizations, right? It's not like women are leading the charge, right? Not saying women can't. Don't. I hope the feminists don't get angry at me, but I'm just saying like men are just more prevalent in those positions of power, right?
Yeah.
So there's no option for a Muslimah who wants to actually know more about the deen other than to message a guy about it, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually the bigger issue. So what would you say? How should a Muslimah sort of go about, I guess, learning the deen in these sort of situations, so that you don't have situations such as, I don't know, leaders kind of messaging you and flirting with you?
So wait, are you asking like how should women go about asking about the
Because
deen?
would you just say like, okay, we should just expect the best of the brother and we should always ask that relevant question we need to, and that's it? Because you showed in your own experience, right? It didn't pan out the way it did. So would you say that for like, what advice would you give to a Muslimah? Would you say that she should ask a question? She should be not afraid to approach these people and ask the males in the community and ask them the question. And if you see that the male is sort of coming at you in a more flirtatious way, you should just block them, ignore them straight away and ignore them? Or like, how should they in that sort of position go about it? Because I'm a guy, right? I can't kind of be in the shoes of a Muslim sister and find out, how to go about it. But what advice would you give to someone in that sort of position?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like if someone answers back and stuff and you start seeing that they're like straying away from the topic, I would just say take it back to the main topic and be like, okay, brother, this is what my question is. You still haven't answered that question and everything like that. And just like basically be very, how do I explain it? Like it's not strong, but like stern. Be stern. And don't even like, because for me, this is my problem. This is my personal problem, is that I have a hard time rejecting people or saying no. And I've had males like, try to flirt and everything like that and make moves. And I'm like very passive. So I'm just like, haha, yeah, like I'm just trying to be nice and not hurt their ego. But at the same time, like, get the conversation, the answer that I need. Like I need that answer. So like the way I would say I approached it and the way I was trying to get rid of him, I would say not to do that, because my way was more passive. I would say to women that to be very direct. Excuse me, brother, I'm not here for that conversation. I'm married, or I'm talking to someone, or even don't even say I'm single. Just be like, I'm single and I'm not here to talk to you like that. And please just answer my question. If they don't do that, because I've had other sisters reach out to me after this situation that happened, and they were like, yeah, there was this, one of the sisters told me like that they tried to reach out to this one public Muslim figure, and all of a sudden they started talking to them very inappropriately, and they got freaked out, and then they blocked them because they're like, well, they did not expect this. So I would say that if even after repeatedly asking them, hey, please stop talking to me like this, I just need that answer, either stop talking to them or just block them. That's literally all I can say.
I feel like at the end of the day, when it comes to like figures like this who will abuse their power and be unscrupulous with how they deal with sisters and their finances as well, it's not a new thing. As in, I feel like in the Sydney community, for example, we have had instances of that where it's been hushed up, where like one of our sheikhs, who's supposedly like one of those Sufi like purify your heart types, and then come to find out one of his events where he takes money from the attendees, $90,000 just goes missing, like, and it's not to be accounted for. Like there's things like that where there is a lot of mismanagement, and it's like big scholars, and it's like they lose all their reputation and it's all found out, and it's a lot of backlash. And even then it's like you just don't know how to respond, especially with the big figure I was talking about in America just a bit over a year ago. As in, like, I was really disheartened. I was like, this guy, like, literally billions of people across the world, across India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, everyone listens to him, right? And it's like, when you come to find out that he's a hypocrite like that, like he's been like, he's the one that taught me about like gender interaction, is like you should always have the door open when you're speaking to a sister and there's one room, or you should always like get them to contact your wife and stuff like that. And he's like doing the exact opposite. So it's a bit like it was so shocking for me. So, and like when you fall from grace like that, I feel like it does injure the faith of people who followed you, in a sense. Not that I became less religious, I just didn't have faith in like
not hopeful
people who consider themselves leaders anymore. Do you get what I mean? Like I think anyone who over the top tries to like pronounce that leadership role, and you feel like they're gaining too much from that attention, then like you should just be suspect. As in, you shouldn't treat them as like infallible in any sense. Like any scholar, any person who's like a big shot in that sense. And like I said earlier, like it's like just like any person, like someone who gets big in Hollywood and makes a lot of money even in non-Muslim Western society, they'll do the same things. They'll get with like lots of women, they'll abuse their wealth, they can be corrupt. As in, it's just Muslims doing it in their own way, in their own society.
Yeah,
I
and,
wanted
and
to
it,
ask you. Yeah, sorry.
oh no,
Go on.
I was just gonna say, and I think it's the part that really bothers people. It's not that they're Muslims who are doing it. It's the fact that they preach about it, the same
Exactly.
thing that they decide to go against, like in private, and like that's the hurtful part because they're influencing us to do better. And so, of course, like you know, like I think from like my repeating experience of like religious men talking to me a certain way, it made me realize, hold up, they're not, forget about being imam or sheikh or a scholar. They're just a man. They're just a
Yeah.
man. I always forget
So,
I just think it's wrong, but it's like you almost put them in a prophet level, like they can never do wrong and they can lower their gaze. No, I had
No, they
friends
can't.
I literally had this one friend of mine who, when I finally told her about that one experience with a famous imam who talked to him like that, she told me her experience too, where there was this guy, she went to his school and stuff like that. He was like a sheikh or whatever like that. And he was at this, I forgot, this Islamic school. Anyway, so she was looking for a job. And so he overheard and saying, hey, you're looking for a job and stuff? She's like, yeah. And so he was like, okay, give me your number. I actually know some job openings and stuff like that. I can like give you the link or whatever like that. She's like, okay, fine. And then that night, she randomly gets text message saying, hey, hottie, hey. And she's like, what? Who's this? And he's like, oh, you know, like, I'm your teacher. And then she's like, what?
lol.
And she's
Oh,
like,
wow.
yeah, you're so hot. You're so, and she was so shocked. And she responded the right way. She said, stop talking like that. He wouldn't stop. And then when she got tired of his BS, she ended up telling school admins, telling them, hey, like, this is this man who's a teacher. He is talking to me like this. Here's all the text messages. Here's his number. And it's funny because even though he got kicked out, he sent her a text message. You know, you should be hiding the sins of others. How dare you?
Oh, wow. It's manipulating, like using the religion to
Religion.
justify
Yeah,
his
exactly.
actions.
Yeah,
That's insane. Well,
You have no idea. I've met like, this is like a personal situation, but like where like I've witnessed you know, people like a men in power with like who's the imam and everything, teaching children and abusing them, and literally would tell them there's a hadith that says, oh, if your Islamic teacher or whatever beats you, every place that they beat you is going to be protected from the hellfire. So now all these kids are allowing him slamming them down and slapping them and breaking their ankle and all that stuff to be a protection from hellfire because he's manipulating them. So it's disgusting. Yeah.
That, like, I think at the end of the day, like, this episode is more to bring light to these issues that are actually preventing, because let's be honest, it doesn't, like, what I've realized, right, from my sort of quote unquote investigations is that it's sort of, these conversations are only heard about in a certain sphere of like Muslim hijabi, you know, it could be influencers or just Muslim hijabis in general, Muslim girls in general, right? Like they are having these issues, so they're only talking about it in a certain sphere, a certain realm of the social media. So it's not actually brought to light in a wider spectrum. But I did want to ask you though, because the other argument is the fact that Muslim girls, like, for example, the specific situation that occurred with the influencer, he only approached Muslim girls that have a big following, yeah?
Yeah.
So the argument is that it's actually the Muslim girls, because she has, I don't know, she's a hijabi model or whatnot, she actually, quote-unquote, flaunts herself, you know, in a sort of not sexualized way, but in a beautified way. So then she's actually inviting guys to approach her in such a way, right? So there's that argument that actually comes up a lot. So what's your take on that angle?
I think, I mean, firstly, I don't even think it matters like how many followers they have. At the end of the day, if a woman's beautiful, they're gonna find them. A man is gonna find them beautiful, regardless of how many followers and influence she has. I also think the reason he approached those and had connection to those specific women is not because of like their looks or whatever. It's because of the amount of followers they had. Because again, when you have to network, make connection, and like get something, like make awareness of something, you have to get involved with other people who have a lot of following. So you just have to behave an appropriate way if you're going to talk to other women who are influencers or that may look good or whatever like that. And I always say this, just because someone looks good, even if a girl is wearing no clothes at all, nobody's asking to get raped. Nobody asks, yeah, like, do this, treat me like this. Like, at the end of the day, like, I've had guy friends, who would say stuff like, "Oh, Monika, I respect you because you cover yourself up, but that girl over there, the way she's like, she's skanky, and so she don't deserve respect." And I'm like, no. If you don't respect a woman regardless of how she dresses, that's representation of your own character. Like, you should respect people regardless of how even if they don't respect themselves, you should respect them. That's at least my point of view.
Okay, that's a really good take, because even people, because would you say it's limited to big hijabi model followers? Like, this sort of actions by certain guys, it's like they'll approach all sisters from all spectrums, regardless of the number of social media followers. They do approach women in such a way and may interact with sisters in a certain way. Would you say that is what occurs as well?
Yeah, I would. I would say that. I would say, yeah, it wouldn't matter. I think it doesn't matter what your level, your status, or anything like it is. I just feel like if someone's attractive, or sometimes it's not even about attraction. Sometimes, again, having brother, like, I understand being a man, like, sometimes you're not even attracted. You're just there in your mindset, and you just turn that way.
Yeah.
So, like, at the end of the day, like, I also don't like when a lot of women speak on behalf of men, like, yeah, this is how men should think. If you are a man yourself, you can't understand how their body works, and our bodies are just different, So I just think, as a man, you should just, if you're a true man, control yourself. That's all I can say.
Exactly. I want to ask you this final question before I ask you another question in a different topic. But
okay.
As a community, because unfortunately these sort of situations occur, and to what degree or how prevalent it is, I guess we won't really know, because it does happen under covers. But it's about how we approach such a situation if it does occur. But what would you say, what advice would you give to a more vulnerable person in society that may get approached by a certain person in such a way, whether it be a leader or figure in the community? Like, what's your kind of takeaway message for them?
I would say, because the thing is, it's so much deeper, because when you're vulnerable, you're insecure and you want validation. I've been there. I've done it myself. Like, when you're insecure, like when someone's a popular person or everybody likes them in school or they're so good looking, like, you want validation from these people, even if they don't even respect you. Honestly, I would just say to love yourself, because at the end of the day, if you love yourself, you wouldn't allow these people to talk to you in a certain way and allow it to happen. Because, when I was looking at all the women that was accusing this person of the way they spoke to them and stuff like that, some of them were as young as 17 years old. So imagine, so they're still not fully developed. Their brain's not fully developed. They're still figuring out who they are. They're vulnerable. They don't have that many following and stuff like that. And they're very young, and they can easily get manipulated by stuff like that when it comes to men with power or status or whatever like that. And honestly, it's all about, like, even if you don't respect yourself, because sometimes you can hate yourself and not respect yourself, whatever, just love yourself and, like, understand that, if anyone in that sense approach you, like, doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're better or cool or whatever like that. And I just feel like I don't know, just like listen to your intuition. Like, does this feel wrong? Does this feel wrong? Okay, then just, like, let it go,
Yeah, like, end of the day, with my perspective, is that a person in a position of power and influence who has a platform actually has an influence to, influence over more vulnerable people in society. So I don't buy into the whole idea of, it takes two to tango. There's always that one person. As you mentioned, like, if you're a young girl, like 16, 17, 15 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have, like, a popular guy come up to you, you can't just be like, oh, it's her fault, right? Because end of the day, she has certain vulnerabilities. you can say the guy does as well, but he put himself into such a platform that he actually needs to have that responsibility. He needs to be looked at in a certain way. He needs to act in a certain way as well. Like, he's built himself that platform, so the responsibility falls on him, not on the other person, or the younger sister. But that's just my kind of take. Do you have like a final takeaway thoughts, Josh, before I kind of ask Monika a completely different question, a different topic?
No, that's pretty much it. Like, people are the same regardless of if they call themselves Muslims or not. Muslims are usually just seedier.
That's literally
they'll do it in the DMs.
Muslim guys are like more shady and more seedy.
Yeah, they're really cringe, to be honest. Yeah,
like they got to cover their tracks properly, this and that. So
it's so weird because because as you guys mentioned about that, like, it's so weird because now it's conditioned my head to think like guys that openly drink and smoke and all that, they're better than the guys that are religious, right? It's so sad, but literally I'm like, oh, like I'll literally tell my sister, hey, like, what about this guy? He drinks and smokes in clubs, but he does it openly. At least, like, you don't know, he's not trying to manipulate and lie to you about anything. She's like, dang, like, yeah, I guess that's true. And now it's like all you can really do is comes down to character now. It's not about religion or partying or whatever,
I do understand that.
100%. Like, my experience, right? I know people that go clubbing and stuff, right? But they're the most sincere and genuine people. When you ask them, not like, I don't drill them. I don't be like, yo, you're harami boy or something, right? I'm like, I talk to them like, do you want to come here or do that or etc., right? He's like, he admits himself like, okay, yeah, what I'm doing is wrong, it's bad. But he's so like sincere about it, right? He knows that what he's doing is wrong. It's just like the idea that his, nafs is taking control of him, and it's also his friendship, who you build friends with. Those are the most, influences. That influences you to do certain actions, right? But when it comes to, people in high positions of power and are religious, and they're playing this game, it shows that their heart is actually like not purified. There's no.
Yeah, they'll manipulate. They'll deceive. It's like a lot more that
they'll
goes
lie
with.
when they need to.
Exactly,
so they actually
benefit them.
Get away with it as well. So it's pretty scary, but inshallah, people can kind of change their ways, and we can make sure and not put all our hopes on someone that is, big in the community to, I guess, be that guiding light. It's about being proactive and pragmatic as well in terms of how we conduct things, inshallah. So inshallah. I did want to ask you though, because I know you posted a lot about this on your Instagram, I think even on your Facebook, your Insta story. You did I think you even did a video on it.
Yeah, I did.
And it's in regards to I watched that video. It was really good, well informed, and it was in regards to the Christchurch attack that happened. Boys in the Cave, we actually covered 3 episodes, one with Uthman, one with Dr. Yasin Morsi, and one with Rima Chia. All different spectrums. One's a journalist, one's an activist, another one is like an academic. And we wanted to take really bring to light the narrative in terms of how the situation that occurred, and even bring details of what occurred, right? But what your angle was, which was really interesting, I actually kept up to date, was the fact that, because I assume you have a lot of friends that are in the hijabi community scene, the hijabi model scene, all that, so you see what they're getting up to, right? So in terms of the attacks itself, you actually called out on them in terms of how they did not speak out enough in terms of what actually happened, and haven't brought enough awareness, because they have big platforms, right? And they didn't actually talk about it. And I actually saw it. I'm like, maybe you've got some weight to it, but maybe you're being a bit too harsh to them. And I actually checked it out. But it was actually true. It's so weird how, you expect a Muslim girl with a platform. It's like a small Snap story or a small Instagram story. Like, oh yeah, sorry for Christchurch, this and that. And that's it. Like, they're just showcasing the whole life. I'm just like, like, is like, as a ummah, right? Like, if your ummah is meant to be a whole body. Everyone's genuinely hurt, but they should know sort of sign of, I don't know, sadness. It might be a bit critical from my end, because I may have quote unquote been influenced by what you said, but I'll take a skeptic approach. But what's your take on that whole situation, that you felt that most hijabi Muslim girls that have platforms did not actually even talk about the atrocities that occurred?
Well, for me, it wasn't even about hijabi Muslim. I just felt like if you're a Muslim and you have a platform, why wouldn't you talk about it? And I'm not saying, look, I'm not even an activist. Okay. I don't care about politics. I don't care. I don't even talk about that stuff. And I'm just a person who just happens to talk about Islam, just here and there, talk about my mind and what my opinions. And so you know, and I notice so many people who don't have much following or nothing, maybe like 2 followers. I don't know. And they'll talk about it. Oh my God, this is so sad. This is a tragedy. And then I'm seeing here people like, it's not even just they made a small post. It's just the way the whole thing went about it. It was like, prayers to New Zealand. Anyways, guys, gotta sell this lipstick. So what's going on, guys? How's your day? I'm like, what? Where is your empathy? Now it's just you are trying to portray yourself as someone who cares when you really don't. You're here to make business and you're here to be liked by Muslims because Muslims are the people that are buying your products. Muslims are the people that are giving you fame, but Muslims, when they're dying, then you don't care. So that's what I was trying to talk about. And people, you know, they took it in a really harsh way. And some of them were like, so are you saying that it matters now because it's in the West that are Muslim? I'm like, I'm not saying it just because it's in the West, but you got to think about it. War, it's been a war zone in a lot of like Muslim countries. It's always been like that, and it's almost like we're numb to it. But when it's coming to the West, that means it's gonna come to our next door one day. You just never know. And if we're not gonna talk about this, then again, when are we waiting until it's our turn and we're about to get shot up because we're Muslims? We're getting Muslim bans and all this kind of stuff. So it's like, if it's like some people are so busy selling their souls to products, to money, to non-Muslims who support Israel, to Zionists or whatever like that, just so they can make money. Like I've literally seen people who supported Palestine completely backtrack because like the company was like, oh, the brand was like, oh, we don't want to participate or like associate with you because you believe this way. What? Like, why can't we express? Like, shouldn't we have a platform so we can help our Muslim peers? Like, that's what I believe, that, you know, if Allah blesses us with a platform, fame, whatever, that's when we should take advantage of it and help people in need, even if they're not Muslim. And the saddest part of it all was these bloggers who have like a decent amount of following that barely talked about it, or if they did, they made a joke of it. But then there's these non-Muslim celebrities like Drake and Kylie and Courtney, and they're talking about it. They're showing empathy, more empathy and understanding to these people. And they're not even Muslim. They don't even have to care about us. And yet the people that should be caring about us didn't care about us. And so I was just trying to look at the deeper issue, the root of the problem of our ummah, because yeah, like that's true. You know, unfortunately, Muslims are dying. And again, this is not the first nor the last time that's going to happen. But what about the Muslims that are living right now? What's wrong with us right now? And the people, I've said this, I've spoken to someone about this, and it's like, you know, these people, they just won't care until one day someone spits at their face and tells them to go back home. Then that's all they're going to talk about. All these beauty bloggers, like if one of them went through that, that's all they will talk about. And all of a sudden you'll see they've become an activist about it. It's like, why do you have to experience that yourself? Why can't you just have an empathy, even if if you've never experienced that, just to understand, like, man, like, what a tragedy. Why, you know, like, this is not right. Like, talking about it. And it's crazy, like, how much hate I got for it. First, I was very general about it because I didn't want to call anyone specific out. And then all these DMs started coming, girl, like, you know, like, this blogger didn't talk about it because they have anxiety. This person has depression. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me just be specific. Then when I was specific, they're like, you know what? You need to stop being specific. Be general. I'm like, oh my God, you just never win. You know what I mean? So, it's just like, I don't know. I was just trying to think of the deeper situation. Like, we're so broken. This ummah is so broken. We can't even stick up for the dead. You know, it was just like a thought I had. So, yeah.
Yeah, you actually brought up a lot of good points, because even from my experiences, because you deal with certain group of friends, even with me as well. And the biggest issue was that we as Muslims, we seem to just compromise on every ideal, like at least have that backbone and be like, I'm gonna stick to my Islamic principles, I'm gonna show remorse and this and that. But then all this overwhelming from my angle was that it's just only love. I'm like, this is so problematic, because those people who you want to hold hands with and say it's only love, they could be Zionists who actually are butchering Palestinians. So then it makes no sense, right? But I understand from a emotional level, like everyone come together, everyone's very sorry. I understand we can bond on that emotional aspect, but I'm talking about on a practical, on the ground level, because I'm involved with, like, we got Boys in the Cave, other organizations we deal with. They have to be political strategic in terms of how they go about their actions and go about how they, conduct, for example, open events in terms of commemorating the people who have unfortunately sort of passed away in those tragic circumstances, right? So it's unfortunate how you're seeing it from the angle of there's people who actually aren't talking about it enough, and when it hurts them personally, then they'll speak about something, a situation, right? And it brings, like, I'm not gonna paint everyone in the same
of course,
brush and say that it's all Muslim platform who are girls, for example, didn't talk about. I'm sure many of them did, and I think I did see a lot of them. But it's about those who actually, didn't show any remorse, because as a ummah, like, I understand maybe you make an income from making certain posts and this and that, but surely have some heart when it comes to these sort of circumstances and issues as well. Because you have people like Joe Rogan who are pretty much bringing anti-Muslim rhetoric onto his podcast. He's even talking about it. Like, you have to understand, like, there's a bigger issue at play, and that everyone has a role, and then you're rightfully calling out the people who actually didn't show enough remorse. And I don't understand how I might be insensitive by saying this, but even saying stuff like anxiety and this and that, those are just excuses. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, bro. Everyone has massive issues in their personal lives. I'm not speaking for myself, I'm speaking for people that I know who go about life looking all happy and stuff, and they're literally broken inside. How does that even play into the part of, that's why they didn't speak out about people in Christ?
Like,
that makes no sense.
Like, I wanted to, like, in that YouTube video when I made it and stuff, so some of my videos are very comedic and like satire, and I was literally gonna go and like have this one scene where I dress up like a rich person drinking like sparkling water and on my phone and be like, sorry, I can't talk about it, I have anxiety. Like, like it's literally that. And they literally just use that excuse. I'm like, oh my God, anxiety. These people can't even be anxious. They're dead. Their brains don't even work. And you're worried about your mind. Like, I'm sorry. Like, and I was talking, and it's crazy because when I came back from Umrah, right, I started, because at first, like, I used to not understand people's perspective, and I take accountability for that. I also felt, I think the way, like, if it's not my way of thinking, then you're wrong. But now I understand different people's perspective, because when I went to Umrah, for example, like our community, our generation, we care so much about mental health and stuff like that. But then and then we like bash the older generation, and we're like, why do you not care about mental health? We should think about, anxiety and depression. It exists and everything like that. Because the older generation's like, nah, just pray on it or whatever like that. But now when I went to Umrah and came back, I'm like, yo, it's not like they don't know that they feel sad. It's not like they don't feel depressed or anxious. Those emotions, they go through it. But the older generation, like, I can speak for my parents, they came from a war-torn place. Like, they were involved in war. They were depressed. They saw people die, their own family members die. But they didn't have a therapist. They weren't fortunate enough to have all that kind of stuff where they can talk about their feelings, because they were worried about people dying. And so all they could rely on was Allah alone. So that is why they say just pray on it, because literally that's what helped them, is God. And so before, as I used to think like, no, we should, mental anxiety and all that kind of stuff should matter. Now when I see that, I'm like, I understand you now, because you're coming from a whole different perspective that had nothing, whereas we're fortunate enough to have everything. So the way when people in a very privileged way think about like, yeah, well, I have anxiety, so I can't talk about it. I'm like, wow, like, when you get spit in your face or something bad happens to you and your family, and the rest of us are just like, sorry, we have anxiety, we can't talk about it, then you're going to be angry. Like, what? I went through something worse and you're worried about your anxiety. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying like that stuff doesn't matter. It does matter. But where does anxiety come from? By sending condolences. I don't see the anxiety in that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like from these Christchurch attacks, you've actually, like, you get a chance to observe how the Muslim community reacts. And from my perspective, like this is assuming that I'm coming from a point of truth, which is definitely wrong. I question myself all the time as well. But then you start observing different behaviors among certain crowds in the community, and you have, for example, Muslim leaders, for example, that are quick to give hugs to the government, which makes no sense because the same government is going to Muslim lands and killing innocents on a daily basis, right? Not on a daily basis, but they've been found out to do that, right? And then you have certain factions in the community are just completely siding with what all the non-Muslims are doing in every single way, shape or form, which is, I understand from a commercial perspective, which is fine, but in terms of sticking to your Islamic principles, it's actually wrong because a lot of things contradict the Islam, our religion. So you can't be promoting stuff that they are doing, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect as well. And then you see, yourself, you've got influencers that don't actually bring it to attention because they actually have the platform to talk and speak about these injustices and even maybe touch on political issues here and there. Like, this is the injustice that happened to, Christchurch, be it to the people in Palestine, this and that. They had that opportunity to really speak out about it and they've just kind of talked about themselves, right?
Yeah.
So I'm starting to identify all these various issues. Then I'm seeing people who are like, quote unquote, have Aqidah issues. Like they need a serious class on Aqidah and they call themselves Muslim. Not that I'm saying they're not Muslim. I'm saying that they haven't learned the fundamentals, like the super fundamentals. And you're just like, what is actually going on? So this event, right? It made us look at, we have so many issues in the ummah and we don't know where to start. Like, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
So
and like,
it's sad.
Yeah. And like, it's crazy because when I spoke out about this situation, like, about our ummah, I've had friends, message me and they were like agreeing. They were like, like we were just like, me and certain friends, we were talking about like, yeah, this is wrong, whatever, like that. And like, we're just like talking about these bloggers who are literally like making a joke of it. Like you'll see people in one snap post saying, oh my God, my heart is so broken, whatever. Literally 2 seconds later, guys, I don't know what to do. Like, we're like, oh, was that whole post fake? Like, because you think they're so emotional, but they're not. Like, and so, and the crazy part was the people that was like, yeah, I agree with you, Monika. As soon as I went public with it and I spoke about it, they were telling me to shut up. They're like, don't talk about it. Stop talking. Don't tell people. Like, just be quiet. We don't need to talk about this. I'm like, are you freaking serious? And it's because, look, again, I decided to have like a small little private account just to express my opinions and thinking that nobody's going to acknowledge me or see me. Like, I just wanted to just express it, right? I got so much hate for it. And then when I brought that attention to my sister, who has a bigger platform, then when she posted up, then all of a sudden it's a popular, cool thing to do, right? So I was like, are you kidding me? It's like, oh, and literally the same people who told me to shut up, all of a sudden gave respect to my sister because she has a lot of following. So it's like, wow, it's not even about the truth. It's about who it's coming from too. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, sorry, Monika. I was just going to say, like, I definitely agree with that perspective that if you do have a big platform as a Muslim, then you should be politically or socially conscious enough that when such terrible things happen, you should make a post about it. And I guess at the end of the day, you can see them as self-interested, as in they're literally about selling their product to their market, which is Muslims, and hence they capitalize on that and they like play up their Muslimness to sell their products. I do understand that, but yeah, I also agree with you that they should be politically conscious. It's totally unrelated point, but do you know about the rapper Nipsey Hussle that died?
Wait, the what?
Okay, there's a famous rapper in America, Nipsey.
Oh yeah, he passed away, right?
Yeah. So that was a big deal. I don't know if you're into all that, but even like so he's a part of the whole like rap game, whatever, and like a lot of rappers like paying their respects. And what like other artists did is that they delayed releasing their music date for like 1-2 weeks. They're like, no, this week like someone big died, as in this is like a sad moment. Why would I release my music when such a tragic thing has happened, that one of our fellow artists who's part of this culture, hip-hop culture, who represents black people, the West Coast, they died. So like I'm not even gonna, don't even ask me about my music. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And those things are really calculated, like album release dates. Like delaying it for a week or two can like lower your income by like millions, like your profits in terms of how you're budgeting album release dates, this, that. So like when when rappers make decisions like that because of a tragic event, it goes to show that they have a lot of respect for, like,
they have morals to stick by.
They have that sort of like
dignity as well,
and that sort of sincerity in their culture, that like, now is not the time to be promoting or selling anything of mine for my end. Just give some time at least.
Wow.
And then wait for like a mourning period, and then we'll release our music. Do you know what I mean?
Add to that, because this brings up a broader issue in terms of the Muslim community at large, because the issue is that with the Muslim community, what happens is that because of people might think, oh, it's just a hijabi Muslim sister that probably didn't show enough respect in terms of what happened in Christchurch. It's actually not true. Like, everyone actually plays a role, because what happens is, like, we talked about previously about, you know, certain brothers have good intentions spreading dawah and stuff, but they still had those sort of desires to approach women, but, you know, the love for the deen kind of overrides that. So they get to a certain platform, and then suddenly all these people kind of messaging them, and then they're acting in an appropriate way, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, whatever happens on the ground level actually manifests on a powerful level. Like, if you are the same person you are in terms of conduct and your personality when you have, you know, 0 followers, and then suddenly when you have like 1 million followers, what happens is that we don't really take into consideration our interactions and actions. And what happens is that whatever we did when we had 0 followers is the same as what we do when we have 1 million followers. The only difference is that you're just saying what you're saying to more people, right?
Yeah.
So what I think it was a sheikh at a khutbah recently, locally here. He said that he was criticizing the political game. He was saying that, look, you have governments that are butchering Muslims all over the world. You know, the Uyghur Muslims to Palestinians, and, you know, even Kashmiris. Or there's so a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And why isn't that, for example, in Australia, I don't know if you know, it's most of our meat is sourced from Malaysia.
Okay.
So it's obviously a Muslim country, right?
Yeah.
And they have a big say in terms of our meat industry here in Australia. So they have a huge influence.
Wow.
And that's actually, I guess, for us as Muslims, it's a good thing. So we can eat our halal meat. But at the same time, if as a Muslim country or a Muslim organization or a Muslim industry, a meat industry, why are you selling products to a Australian government that is pretty much advocating for deaths of Muslims in Muslim worlds? If you actually cared, if you had a little bit of sympathy in your heart, shouldn't you actually boycott something like that? Because you know the detriments of that to the Australian, you know, government or to the meat industry. So you know what you have on a power dynamics. You have a lot of influence, but you're just selling things because, hey, you know, capitalism, right? Let's just make more money.
Yeah.
So the fact that I'm trying to get at is that as a Muslim community on a grassroots level, we don't care, right? And what actually happens that manifests on a political level, on a organizational level, on a et cetera, et cetera. So it's a bigger conversation of how much does the Muslim ummah actually care? How much does the Muslim ummah, how interconnected are they with issues that are happening around the world? I remember there was a scholar back in, like, this was like a long time ago. And I remember he said, someone asked him, like, why are you always sad? He's just like, how can I be happy if my innocent Muslim brothers in different lands are getting slaughtered? You know what I mean?
It's so sad.
And it's so relatable to this day. And we know that we have our own self-interest. We just want to get more money. Capitalism. You know, people have to critique, you know, liberalism, secularism, capitalism. They have to have an idea of what it's about and how it can distort our goal in life, right? Because if we just play by what society tells us, we're going to not follow what Allah and His Messenger want.
Yeah,
so
that's so true.
This is actually, I know we were talking about hijabi model sisters that were not talking about it, but this actually plays into a bigger
picture to this
issue of politics, social, you know, issues.
Exactly.
And speaking out
and not
against
even that, like,
bad.
If you look even deeper into everything, the way the government, like the secular government, is going about it, not just here in the West, like, it's just in general, like everywhere, they're numbing even Muslims into not caring about other Muslims dying, because they know that if all the Muslims all over the world, like, if we got together, we'd be the most powerful being ever. We'd be so powerful. But there is a hadith that literally says Muslims are going to be huge in numbers, like a sea of foam, but we're going to be so weak, and it's because of wealth, and like, just like worldly desires is what's going to cause us to separate and stuff like that. And that's literally what we're seeing today, that people would rather gain money from the same people who's killing our people, because that matters more to us. To us, priorities is wealth, basically, and dunya desires. And it's just unfortunate. And also on top of that, like, for example, they say, Starbucks, they, give money to, the Zionists and all that kind of stuff. But the way that things work, like, I remember, like, people went off on me because I had a Starbucks cup. I'm addicted to Starbucks. And they're like, it's, you're basically going against Palestine. I'm like, bro, even just anything, even if I go to halal market, my tax is going to Zionists. It's going to Israel. Okay. So it's like every way. So even if you decide to take like the Islamic way and try to do the halal way, it doesn't matter. Some parts of it is still going to go there. So it's like the way everything's set up, it's almost like it's so hard to win.
I have actually two like real life examples to kind of bring into this conversation. One is that I remember seeing this guy, I forgot his name, I'm skipping my mind, but anyways, he was a non-Muslim guy and he's very pro-Muslim, Palestinian. It's kind of like an Edward Said, I guess, but of like the contemporary times. It's like he's sympathetic towards Muslims. Yeah. So what happened is that he started gaining like following. Like a lot of people who are non-Muslim and actually sympathetic to Muslims get big followings eventually. Yeah. Because a lot of Muslims are, oh yeah, he's sticking up for us and he's non-Muslim. But anyways, I remember, I think it was American. He went to the Middle East and he had this big rally, this big event, and he was talking. And I remember I watched like a clip of it and it really hit me in the heart. He was just like, you Muslims, what the hell are you doing? You have the Middle East, it's literally like your land, and you're divided in nationalism. Damn. You actually literally speak the same language, Arabic. You're all bound by it. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. Muslims are bound, by the language of Arabic, through the Quran, right? Yeah. And you guys are like divided. This makes no sense. What the hell are you doing? How can you not stick up for oppression and go against oppression and stick up for justice? What are you guys doing? And I'm just like, bro, why is this a non-Muslim telling us this? Like, this is actually so sad and so true. Speaking haq, it's like a non-Muslim. It's like when I think it was like a hadith or something. It was like Allah will allow His deen to manifest even if it's through non-Muslims. So, wow. And another example is that even locally, I'm not going to mention names because it's very sensitive. Like, there's an organization involved. So, there was an organization that has dealings with mosques, has gained a lot of trusts in mosques and institutions. And people see as that organization as, okay, yeah, they are working for the community, they're doing things for the community, everyone in the institution is Muslim, so they're all helping us. I'm not, by the way, I know people who have big organizations listen to this podcast. This is not charity organization or whatever. I'm just going to keep it vague, yeah? Yeah. So what happened is that what I found out through certain people is that what they actually do behind the scenes, they all money hungry. They all want to do certain things. So I'm not going to say specific details. I'm not throwing random accusations, right? Yeah. So I've got this verified 100%. But what happened is that organization wanted to do something that actually they wanted to run this sort of campaign to gain more money. That campaign specifically is completely haram. Like, it's totally haram. Like, wow. There's no way to take about it. Like, they're trying to make money off like haram means, yeah? So unfortunately, everyone got the green light to get that campaign going, right? And this is without knowledge of the wider Muslim community. So they're getting quote unquote duped to do something that's haram, clearly, just to make small profit. But the thing that happened, subhanallah, so the board of directors, I think it was the shareholders, one of the big shareholders of that organization. He's a non-Muslim. He's the one who actually stopped that campaign from happening. He's just like, bro, this is not, religiously inclined. Wow. Like, what are you doing? And because he is like a big holder in terms of shares, I think he actually stopped that campaign from happening. Wow. Can you believe this? Like, it's a non-Muslim in a institution that's full of Muslims, like probably 99%, the one non-Muslim guy. He's the one actually stopped something from haram from happening. So you'll be surprised how many non-Muslims actually follow the sunnah. Yeah. From my experience, like even from a business perspective, I like taking a business lens. I've realized like all of these self-help books, they're actually incorporating the sunnah into it. I know people that I was having a chat with someone, I think from Mizanam, I think it was Malik, he was telling me that he was reading something. It was like a very famous, one of those guys who are business minded entrepreneur and stuff. He's just like, he gets up early in the morning. First thing he does is like he thanks God for everything he has. Like, this is a non-Muslim.
Mashallah.
So it shows that you see, like, why are non-Muslims, Muslims are oppressed and we're in a bad state. It's literally because the non-Muslims, most of them are actually, good people following the Sunnah, doing the right things. And if they do something that's bad, they actually don't know. It's not like they're accountable for it.
Exactly.
So what exclusives as Muslims do we have? So we actually have a responsibility on the grassroots level to actually care about the ummah enough, because it actually manifests on a powerful level, on an organizational level, as I just brought those examples. So it's actually down to us. So you can berate like those people who actually didn't post enough about what happened in Christchurch, because everyone has a role. Everyone, I had people that posted on my social media saying that you're being divisive. I'm trying to speak the haq. Like, if you disagree with me, I'm actually glad. I don't actually care. I'm like, disagreements are fine, but to say that if you're saying something right is like breaking the ummah up, I'm trying to, like, from my platform, I'm trying to do as much good as I can, right?
Yeah, and the funny
you can criticize what I say. That's not really,
the funny part, how they called you, oh, you're so divisive. You're talking about how our ummah is divided anyways. It's been there. You're just calling it out.
Yeah, exactly. SubhanAllah. Like, I had people that messaged me saying that, look, people can criticize certain aspects about what I said in particular, like, oh, you don't have to bring the non-Muslims into account. I don't actually have issues there. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. That's a good point you make, right? I'm open to changes or different perspectives and opinions, right?
Yeah.
But it's about when you start saying things like, you're kind of advocating for things that go against Islam. That's when I have issues. Like, bro, have like a backbone, because this is why the ummah is divided, because of our actions on a grassroots, just on a basic level. We need to have such a firm stance on such things so that we have like a backbone when it plays out in a more, powerful kind of dimension or powerful level. But sorry, this is a rant from my end. I never really do these sort of rants, but yeah,
it's fine. No, it's good. Like, because we need to talk about this stuff. And like, I just find it really upsetting because, like, during Prophet Muhammad's time, peace be upon him, like, people would like ask like, oh, what is Islam about? He would say, look at our Muslim people. That's how you'll know what Islam is about. And now it's like, well, if you ask what Islam is about, like, you'll hear the worst things about Muslim general. So you have to say, no, our real Islam is in the Quran. Don't look at the people. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, that's the word. I used to fall into that line of thinking. Like, when a sheikh says, I'm like, fine, yeah, true. Look at what the scriptures say, this and that. This is why Islam has, alhamdulillah. But then when you actually engage with real life on the ground, you start seeing Muslim organizations that are like completely doing haram things, and the worst kind of politics, and our politics and how we do things is like so whack. And then how we act, it's like my experience, Muslim business owners are like, we had this chat in the last episode we did with you, but like they tend to be like the worst people. Yeah. Like, from my experience, it's so weird. So it's like everyone has a role here. Like,
and you know what the saddest part is? I've spoken to people who were interested in becoming a Muslim, and they said when they met Muslims, they changed their mind or didn't want to be a Muslim anymore because of that.
Exactly. So we all have a responsibility, and we actually uphold what the Quran and Sunnah say. People can't just be like, yeah, look at like, when people say, like, for example, when they talk about treatment of women, like a lot of feminism versus Islam talk happens a lot, it's feminism, batil, and is it comparable with Islam? I'm kind of in the middle ground with that. But, when you hear people, religious figures just say, look, Islam gave its rights to Muslims. Yeah. There, have it, like, it's in the Quran. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's true. But then you hear about stories from sisters, like insane stories, like, subhanAllah, like, there was a sister that posted about how her mom, she's a doctor, she would get like 7 counts of domestic violence abuse happened. Like, Muslim women come to her like on a weekly basis, a doctor. When I started knowing about these things, because from my perspective, I'm not aware per se, when you encounter like real life situations, you're just like, hold on a minute, what the hell is going on? Like, what are we doing as a community? And if we just say the Quran says XYZ, we're actually missing the whole point. We're missing the whole point of what we should be doing on the ground. Yep. That's why I don't actually hate feminists, because feminists, like, when they come to you and say, look, we have to, I don't know, give men and women have equal inheritance, right? Yeah. I'm like, why would they be saying that? You dig a little deeper. The reason they're saying that, even though it goes against the Quran and Sunnah, they're actually saying that, look, because on the real ground, men actually hoard the wealth. So they don't actually, for example, men have to pay for, the rent and the food and this and that. That's like the obligation of Muslim men. They don't actually do that. So to make kind of balance things out, we actually have to do inheritance laws in such a way so that, we can get that quote unquote justice, right? So it's like the maqasid of the Sharia, achieving that. So if you actually break it down, just touch the layers a bit, you realize that everyone has a responsibility, and the ummah is unfortunately in such a state, and that every single one of us has a responsibility to do good. Doesn't matter if we have 0 followers, because on the ground you can, with sincere intentions, you can actually change the narrative, the discourse. So
yeah, so true.
Yeah.
Wow, but, that was a good talk.
yeah, subhanAllah. We actually might have to get heading as well, but do you have any final thoughts? Because we talked a lot, but just a takeaway point or message for listeners, for the listeners in general.
I feel like we talked about so many things. I don't even know where to start, to be honest. I mean, you can end it off, honestly.
Okay, but I guess the end of the day, it's about the ummah caring and really talking about these social issues that exist. So, for example, the first part of the episode, we were discussing, men in power or people in power that are using the platforms to get what they want.
Yeah. And
it kind of manifests into the ummah at large. So we don't want to quote unquote expose people. That's not our intention. It's about quote unquote bringing justice and bring these issues to light, because we have to deal with them, because we have so many issues in the Muslim community. But I know, as Boys in the Cave, that's why we started out. We felt that conversations like this aren't happening enough, and on top of that, we want to talk about intellectual topics and have academic discourse, because that's what the community needs. But I know even with your own platform, you'll bring that awareness to light. Regardless if you're agreeing or disagreeing, it's about hopping on the same boat. Like as I said earlier, I don't even care if you disagree with my points. At least if we're on the same boat in terms of helping the ummah go forward, then I have actually no issues. But people who are actually criticizing me aren't on that same boat. They're actually taking a whole different perspective. They're taking like a capitalist lens. They're taking a secularist lens. And
and at the end of the day, I feel like it's important that we not only call non-Muslims for the Islamophobia, but we call out our own Muslims for the flaws and the wrong things that they do too,
Exactly. The only issue is like it makes non-Muslims look at us and be like, look at these wackos, like they're fighting about everything. But that's the other issue, unfortunately, we have to kind of deal with. But Jazakallah khair, Monika, for coming on Boys in the Cave. I know we brought you on in such short notice. Jazakallah khair again for coming on and having this discussion. I thought it was it was like raw. It was like unfiltered raw like discussion. Yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So for our listeners, thank you for giving us your attention. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us at info@boysinthecave.com or find us on Facebook, and you can follow our journey through Instagram. Please leave a 5-star rating on iTunes. That greatly helps us. So you can actually leave comments as well. Please do that. That helps other people find our podcast on iTunes. And just, support us. Go on our Facebook page. You can leave a comment as well. Alhamdulillah, our platform is growing on social medias as well. Give us a follow on our Instagram as well. And also hop on Patreon, because you can donate as little as $1 a month just to support our podcast. We got running costs for this. We got so many other plans and projects. I know I've been saying this a lot in our previous episodes, but we've got so many things lined up. But it's money is unfortunately an inhibiting factor in that. So inshallah, you can even donate just once a month, so you can really help this project continue for as long as we can. So you can go on patreon.com/boysinthecave. So from our special guests Monika Sarker, Josh, and myself, we wish you all the best. This is Tanzim signing you off. Assalamu alaikum. That was intense. That was a good episode. Cool.